Section 11 of Shadowland, October 1919. This is LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by journalists. Shadowland, October 1919 by various. The Influence of the Screen by Madame Olga Petrova. There is probably no creator influenced today in the life of the proletariat than the influence of the screen. This influence has grown from the wonderment expressed by a handful of spectators in the first improvised picture theater, at the fact that photographs could move from an apparent relief to the influence that, but a few months ago, caused many to forsake simple and peaceful modes of a life to wage bitter and unrelenting war against the common enemy of our latter-day civilization. Of course, there are those who still leave a pitying eyebrow at the moving picture in general and an incredulous one at any influence it may have in particular. With this, we are not directly concerned, but with the thousands who fill the picture theaters from the north to the south and from the east to the west, we are very closely and certainly concerned indeed. One is continually told that the audience goes to the theater to be amused and not to think. Never was statement more stupid and paradoxical than this. Every person, unless he be imbecile, intoxicated, or otherwise mentally comatose, thinks consciously or subconsciously, just as he breathes consciously or subconsciously. It is the quality of a thought he thinks that is the open and variable quantity. It is the thought suggested to the onlooker by the happenings on the screen that engenders the influence which may react to his benefit or to his harm. As to what is amusing. One man's fish was ever another man's poison, and while one woman feels that she has not spent a profitable quarter unless she weeps copiously, another rolls her eyes ecstatically over the wooings of Mr. Douglas Fairbanks. Another remark that one hears continually whenever the influence of the screen for harm is mooted is the remark that people are perfectly well able to judge for themselves whether it's good or not good for them, without the interference of a self-appointed benefactor of the public morals. That the discrimination of the last-mentioned individual may be of a questionable variety goes without saying, but the necessity for the same discrimination is apparent. For the same reason that we have religious advisors, medical advisors, legal advisors, and so on. If the quality of a thought appreciated and accepted by the mob were by nature of such soundness, from a personal or communistic standpoint, that guardians were unnecessary, then the jail and the church, the school and the reformatory would disappear automatically, and the towers and the minarets of Utopia would reflect the whiteness of a hitherto unsuspected dawn. The mass is fed, therefore, upon faith which is more or less prodigated by the school and the church, not to mention the mother of the newspaper, and last but by no means least by the screen. Now thinking being one thing, and reasoning a horse of quite another color, the mass forms its conclusions for the greater part by just such artificial processes as this, taking them on surface values. To expect that some as to reason these copyright maxims pro or con would be to expect a miracle. I once heard a person say, "Show me what newspaper a man reads, and I will tell you his political opinions." That remark might be translated for the screen. Show me which artist pictures a person most frequently sees, and I will tell you that person's general outlook on life. This statement may sound broad, but to one who receives, as man, personal letters as I do, both on the subjects of my own place and the place of other artists as well, it underestimates rather than exaggerates the truth. I have found that the bulk of these letters take for gospel that which they see upon the screen and are powerfully affected thereby. This being the case, it behooves those who have the responsibility of guiding the public mind, pictorially speaking, to see to it that their mind shall be given such quality of a thought that shall not lead it to a lesser state of grace. For instance, while one admits that sex and crime have their place in art and on the screen, one would make it a sine qua non that if lapses from certain laws are to be made the basis for screen amusement, call it what you will, the offenders must be brought to face the inevitable consequences of their wrongdoing. These consequences should be shown in as great detail as the offense, so that the criminal may not be hysterically proclaimed a hero or a martyr, or the poor publico as a sweet godless young thing who God knows couldn't help it. Such pictures as Raffles, just to take a case in point, are to my mind exceptionally dangerous and bad propaganda for the unreasoning. Here is a man who, under the guise of friendship, eats his friend's soul, takes him by the hand, and under cover of the darkness and a sleeping household, robs him. In the film of Raffles, all the sympathy of the beholder is enlisted on behalf of this common, dirty sneak thief, instead of the play showing what a 99 out of 100 cases would have logically happened to him in actual life, jail, and which, by the way, would tend to show that even apart from the ethics of common decency, it is an economic blunder to steal. He is shown as a hero of a romance and is, of course, allowed to escape free and clear. Pictures showing heroines in Riverside Drive apartments bearing and befeathered, surrounded by a bevy of obsequious serving wenches and an army of prize bikinis, while they, the heroines, hold streaming handkerchiefs to their eyes to the accompaniment of a subtitle which informed us that Mother Simply had to have an operation and it was the only way, are common to fatuousness. The fact that clinics are provided in every hospital where medical and surgical treatment is free of charge, of course never enters the nasty minds of the scenario writer, or it is still more nasty, because more commercial producer. The sacrifice of her honor is the tasty tidbit which must be served up on a platter of gold with the piquant sauce of neurotic and weak-spined hysteria. To show whether the hospital or the river would fail, the producer or the carefully educated public will disgust at such crassness of reality. Such sordid details must be spared the delicate susceptibilities of those who a few reels earlier thrilled deliriously at the aforesaid sacrifice, particularly if accompanied by a thrilling display of torn shirt-waist and disheveled hair. No hospital, no river. The audience must be placated, the heroine must be whitewashed at the 11th hour, so that there may be no airy privacy among the Simon Peers of the flock. And the aurora of which in the screenplay, the woman who goes out Melissa forethought to select her mate with or without the law, as beseems her best, and then faces squarely the consequence of her own action, no matter what that consequence may be, is on the other hand a villainess of the deepest dye and rarely gets by the scissors of the thoroughly moral sensible. The sympathy of the mass is not with her. She has given them probably no thrills in the first place. She has not been directed by the hair to the apartment on Riverside Drive. She has not profited to the extent of showing us a bevy of maids and a collection of prize bikinis thrust unwillingly upon her as the result of mother's operation, and she is not held to high heaven that she couldn't help it, depriving us thereby of the final exercise of our inalienable right to forgive. Again, I say that is pandering to the nasty desire for nasty things, to the morbid and hysterical craving of those whose principal object in coming to the theater is to see forbidden and therefore attractive scenes which they are. After all, sinning by proxy is bad stuff, very bad stuff indeed. And there is another thing which helps to make this state of affairs inimitably worse, that is the advertising or publicity which the producer or exhibitor employs to stir up the worst side of a human nature to a pitch of curiosity which will redound to their inevitable harm and to his undoubted profit. It is only a few months ago that I saw a full-page advertisement in a New York Sunday paper which bore advertising to this effect in its largest and blackest type. She led one man to ruin, another to dishonor, and a third to death. See Miss Blank Ann. I'm at the point of seeing this picture. I was anxious to know what punishment could possibly be found meet for a lady of such a disturbing pictorially proclivities. I must say that that film thoroughly entirely lived up to its advertised specifications, but the punishment, why? Of course there was none. She couldn't help it. Her husband said so. In the title after which the scene faded out on a lengthy and thoroughly nauseating collage. This is only one instance of the harm that advertising is just one of the many, but powerful ramifications of the influence of the screen can accomplish. Take any advertising paper and read some of the idiotic and dangerous muck that is used to exploit certain screen productions. Only one thing seems to me to throw any hope on the situation, and that is that a pendulum can only swing just so far in one direction. It must finally swing the other way. We have had crime epitomized. We have had every kind of thrill, forbidden and otherwise, with the exception perhaps of the details of the punishment to fit the crime, until with the inevitable reversion of the pendulum. Who knows but that some day we shall be thrilled to dissolve at the sight of a daisy growing in the grass, or a sun setting across a silver sea. The advertising will tell us that it's the most beautiful sunset ever photographed, and the sexual aberrations of the heroine will not even be mentioned. When I think of Broken Blossoms, Mr. Griffith's great, because simple masterpiece, I see the signs of the times. End of section 11.